Hello, we're very delighted to welcome you to the Eurasian Humanities Institute named after Murat Choshanov, and thank you so much for the opportunity to conduct this interview. Today we have an esteemed guest with us, a distinguished professor and renowned expert in the field of educational science and pedagogy, Murat Choshanov. Through his hard work and achievements, he has become an important bridge strengthening cooperation between the United States and Kazakhstan. We really eagerly look forward to learning more about his inspiring professional journey, unique perspectives on the education, and current research. Thank you for taking your time to join us for this conversation.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, so the first question is, what inspired you to pursue an academic career, and why did you choose your career path?
That's a very good question. I appreciate that. At the beginning, I was not thinking to become a teacher. So I thought I would be a mathematician and do research in one of the fields of mathematics. But then it happened that I started my career as a teacher. And gradually I found myself in love with the subject, with students that I was working with teaching itself, with helping students to learn one of the challenging subjects, mathematics. Mm-hmm. And that led me to where I am now. I truly enjoy teaching. I like working with my students. I like my discipline, mathematics. I also teach courses in learning sciences. I teach courses in mixed method research in education. And one of the important things that when you become a professional is to love what you do. If you love what you do, then you are happy, and everybody who is around you are also happy.
That's really wonderful. So when we talk about some qualities of a successful educator, what are, in your opinion, essential qualities to become a successful and a professional educator?
Another good question. My personal view on what is the best quality that the educator should possess to be successful is inspiration. Mm-hmm. You have to be inspired yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to be inspired by the subject that you teach. And inspiration is contagious. Mm-hmm. So if you are inspired by what you do, most likely you will inspire your students.
Mm-hmm. That's really amazing.
And then, of course, you should know your subject well. Mm-hmm. So if you know what you teach at a deep level, you could also help students to understand the subject. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about knowing formulas in mathematics or just rules or theorems, but to know what makes mathematics as a science, as a discipline. Mm-hmm. And it goes beyond just the rules, the facts, the theorems. It's about concepts such as infinity, for example. It's just mind-blowing concept. If you don't understand infinity, then you will be in trouble understanding most of the mathematics, starting with the calculus, for example. So in-depth understanding of the subject is the second most important quality. And the third one, I would say, caring about your students. Yeah. So if you do care about your students beyond the subject you teach, then they do appreciate that. Yeah. If you do not care, they also feel that. So inspiration, the subject matter, and caring for your students at both professional and personal level.
Absolutely, those qualities are very important. And how do you personally approach inspiring and motivating your students?
I do think a lot before I design my courses. So, for example, if I teach a new course in the spring, it will take me 3 or 4 months before teaching the course to start thinking, how would I do that? In a way, I think about designing the course so it will engage students into what I meant in-depth understanding of the content. I start looking for good textbooks. Sometimes I do select a huge pile of textbooks, and then from that pile, I carefully look at each resource and find the one that I think would best fit student learning. Number 2, I have to imagine my future students. I teach courses at bachelor's level, at master's level, and doctoral level. So at each level, you have to carefully think, how would you make a pathway for a student to start your course and to finish the course? So in a way, I am designing a roadmap with the student in mind, so they know that from the point A at the beginning of the class to the point B at the end of the class, they know each step through the course and how do they reach the finish line. So that design or that roadmap, designing the roadmap takes most of my time because I have to think of every detail on that pathway to make the course clear, transparent, easy accessible to students, and making it as an enjoyable journey for them with me through the course when I start teaching it.
That's fantastic. It's really clear that you put a lot of impact on your students. And the next question is, which of your current projects or research areas do you consider the most promising?
Well, as we know, chatbots are moving so fast. It took only, a year and a half as the ChatGPT 3.0 was introduced last year. And now, after a year and a half, we see how artificial intelligence is dominating not only education, but most of the fields that people deal with. So that's something that I am thinking hard at this point. There are 3 groups of people that I talk concerning the AI in education. The first group are very skeptical. So the first group, let's say 20% of people that my colleagues, people I talk to, they're critical about potential use of AI in education because number one, they think that students are usually more advanced than the faculty. So the students use ChatGPT and they consider it cheating. They also think that students would not learn well because they can ask AI to do their projects for them, and so on and so forth. And then you have, in the middle of that, you have a second group, which is the largest one, 50 to 60%, who are not in the subject, so they don't care. So they simply don't know well what AI is and what AI could do in education. And there is the third group, which is about 20 to 30%, and I belong to that third group. They think that any tool, and AI is a tool, very much like a computer, a graphing calculator, any technological tool that we used before, now we're using now. Probably the next step would be quantum computers. Every time the new technology is introduced, we have that point where some people have understandable fear of using it. But the third group that I mentioned, they are open-minded. So they know that we already went through the same experience with the computers, with the graphing calculators, with the internet. So they say, let's think about how would we use it effectively. So if the first group is, for example, talking about cheating, students using AI to cheat, this third group is saying, how do we make our teaching more effective with the use of AI so the students could benefit from using AI and the faculty would benefit too. So you're making the learning transparent on both sides, for students and for faculty. For example, when we talk about assessment, assessment is an important part of the learning. If you include ChatGPT or AI into the assessment triangle, so you have, before it was a teacher and a student. So the student submit the work, teacher evaluates and grades the student. Now with AI, we have to expand the triangle, the assessment triangle. So we have teacher, student, and ChatGPT, AI. So AI becomes part of the assessment team along with the teacher and the student. So the teacher knows that student will use AI and student knows that the teacher will use AI to grade his work. Everything becomes so transparent, open, and what is critically important, effective.
That's really fantastic, and I think that it will be very contributing to our very advanced world. So how do you usually handle setbacks or criticism on your work?
I'm open to criticism because I'm myself a healthy skeptic. Every researcher by its nature at some level should be a skeptic. And that also means that I use critiques of my work openly. It's an intellectual pleasure for me to respond to critiques, to think about critical reviews. For example, when I submit papers to journals, you get the feedback, and in most of the cases, the feedback is critical. And at the beginning of my career, I should confess that it was not pleasant. So you would get a feedback and I say, So you get discouraged and you start thinking you are not good. Now, since I'm also serving as a reviewer for several journals, I know that feedback is so essential. And when you put yourself on both sides of the spectrum, being a reviewer and being reviewed, you understand the process. And the process has such an intellectual satisfaction because it's almost like you're playing intellectual game. You get the feedback, you get the critical review, and you start thinking, how would I respond to that? So someone who provided that critical feedback would be satisfied by my response, not just simply responding, but thinking about that person and thinking how to convince that person. When I teach my courses, I use the strategy that is called convince yourself, convince your friend, and convince a skeptic. So if you develop that habit on responding to the critical, let's say, review, you first convince yourself, then try to convince your friend, and that will help you to convince the skeptic. So that's the beauty of being doing review, responding to review, and accepting criticism productively.
Thank you for sharing. I think it's very encouraging to hear about your approach to overcoming challenges. Next question is, if you had the chance to start over, would you still choose the same field?
Yes, I will. For maybe a simple reason. First, we don't have a chance to reverse the time. We don't know how to reverse the time. Maybe at some point we'll learn how to go back in time and change your decision. But it's at this point of the development of science and research, we are not able to do that. So it's I usually don't think about things that are impossible. I think about things that are possible. So that means whatever happened, it happened for good. And it happened for me being in the profession that I like, working with people that I like, and teaching the subject that I like. So if you like something, why would you change it?
Yeah, that's a great perspective. Thank you. And the last question is, who has the greatest influence on your professional journey, and how did they influence you?
That's a touching question because when I started my career, I was at about your age. So I finished the pedagogical institute at the age of 21. And I was assigned to teach at the high school. And the first day was a disaster. I went to the school and I found myself so miserable because students did not like my teaching. They were not responding to my teaching. And thanks to my mom, she was a teacher, and my dad was also a professor at the university. So I'm coming from the family of educators. And I came home that night and I told my mom, I'm not going back tomorrow. And she says, why not? You just started, it's your job. I say, Mom, I feel so miserable that I cannot handle the class. She sat with me the whole evening and she told me her stories, how she became a teacher. She worked at the orphanage and she convinced me to stick. And every morning since that day, she would cook breakfast for me. She would talk to me. She would encourage me to go and do something differently every day. So slowly, gradually, I was getting into mode of teaching that I thought was improving. And by the end of the year, starting the next year, I felt much more prepared to teach high school students. And going back to your question, my mom is the person who influenced me. She's my inspiration. she's not longer with me, but I always talk to her. I carry a wooden heart that she gave me before she passed away, and I carry that heart with me whenever I go, wherever I go. And I brought that heart with me to Kazakhstan. It is with me.
Thank you so much. That is indeed very touching. And yeah, thank you so much
You're welcome.
for this very insightful and inspiring conversation. And I think we've gained a lot of new perspectives and knowledge today about your journey in education and research. And we wish you to continue success in your career and look forward to seeing impact of your work. Thank you once again for your time today.
Thank you. You had wonderful questions, and I enjoyed the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.